Quamrun Zinia. Quamrun Zinia writes poems and short stories. She earned her Bachelor of Arts with honors in English language and Master of Arts in English language from Dhaka University, Bangladesh. Then she earned her Master's in Public Administration degree from Southern University and A&M College, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, USA. Currently she is pursuing her Ph.D. degree in Public Policy and Urban Affairs in the same university. In the National Education Week 1989 contest, she earned the first position in Poem Recitation, and was awarded the National Gold Medal in 1989. She is also the proud recipient of FOBANA Literary Award for 3 consecutive years. She is the editor of Akashleena, an anthology of the literature by Bangladeshi Diaspora Authors. She is the founding president of the Akashleena Literary and Cultural Organization, ALCO. She currently lives in Louisiana, USA. Poet Munira Chowdhury, a wingless bird of the fog, one who knew her own geometry perhaps. Time is like Salvador Dali's melting clock, an image of infinite boundless time. It is not that time emerges in our thoughts, but it is we, who are represented in time. Our mental maturity comes with time. We modify instead of getting cleaned out. A whole year has passed without Munira Chowdhury, and November 17th is back again. Time goes on, as Munira Chowdhury knew. I once had a wristwatch. 20 years ago, a seagull flew off across the vast waters with the minute and the hour hands, never ever to return. And neither did I step into the watch shop again. I became acquainted with Munira Chowdhury while working on the Anthology of Akashleena Diaspora. We have a host of excellent writers and poets settled in England, and it was one of them who referred Munira Chowdhury to me. At that time, she was the director of the Bangla Academy UK Foundation, and was also working with NHS alongside. I was introduced to the poet, spoke to her over the phone, and got connected on Facebook. That was the beginning. I requested her to send me 5 of her poems along with a small photograph and biography to publish in Akashleena Diaspora. I still remember that the very next day, Munira Chowdhury emailed her poems and all the other information I had asked for. I must confess that even before I read her poems, it was her photograph that caught my attention. Such a beautiful face, how pretty Munira Chowdhury was. Wondered where have I seen such a charming face. Looked so familiar, like a sister, so close, so dear, where have I seen her before? That is another painful story, and I shall write of it someday. The photograph below is the first one which Munira Chowdhury had sent to me. She looks as though she is the light of the lamp in the darkness. Today, after a year of her passing, as I look at her photo, I think how astoundingly quiet she is, passing without any reproach or accusation, Munira Chowdhury, as if he burning within, alone quietly in stillness, an enchanted aromatic incense. Photo, Poet Munira Chowdhury. After our introduction, I noticed how pleasantly organized Munira Chowdhury was. She regularly wrote short stories and poems, while editing books and literary papers. Under the banner of Bangla Academy UK Foundation, she organized several excellent and successful programs on Bengali literature and culture, one after the other, starting right from Poila Baishak to book fairs. Immersing oneself in Bengali culture and literature as a busy immigrant, in the midst of different problems and under various adversities, is extremely demanding and calls for a lot of courage, but Munira Chowdhury's love for them and her tireless work on their promotion are certainly evidence of an exceptionally thriving heart. Whether in education, knowledge, or in her pride, whether in where she stepped or what she established, she was a person with an extraordinary and glorious heart. Poet Munira Chowdhury was born in Chestershire, UK, but even so, her parents sent her to Bangladesh to get acquainted with Bengali language, Bangladesh and Bengali culture and get education. Later, after returning to the United Kingdom, Munira Chowdhury started writing poems and short stories in Bengali. She wrote in English too. The brilliant Munira Chowdhury had a postgraduate degree in English from Cardiff University, UK. She also successfully earned her post-graduation in mass communication and journalism too. Munira Chowdhury was a familiar face to the Bengalis in England, known for playing an important role in practicing Bengali and Bengali culture. And so, a pall of gloom fell on the Bengali immigrant community at the news of her death. Even the day before her death, she had posted one of her poems on Facebook. She was indeed one of the brightest representatives of the poets of the diaspora. Munira Chowdhury's published books of poetry. Writer Matra Mongol ne Darjar Batash Maikananda Kabaya. Her English book of poetry is called Come Close to My Eye Pencil. She was editor of the literary paper Raktakarabi. She co-authored the book of poetry called Chandrahata Kabita. Her edited collections are Dilwar Mongol, Pita o Kabita, and Selected Diaspora Kabita. Besides these, she left 2 unfinished books titled Teen Akar Kabita and Teen Akar Sresh the Golpo that were to be published by Bangla Academy UK Foundation. The book Poetics of Green Delta was published by Bangla Academy UK Foundation, under the able guidance and supervision of director, Munira Chowdhury, and edited by Naeem Feroz. Munira Chowdhury served as the director of Bangla Academy UK Foundation until her death. Every few days Munira used to update her Facebook status with her poems, and I never missed her posts, especially her poems. I used to love reading them. They were different. The words, the construction of the sentences, the use of myths, the music of the language and so on, made reading a pleasurable experience. Her poetry could move readers into the depths of thought, imagination, mysteries and intense philosophies. I used to read her extraordinary poems with deep concentration. In my youth, I floated paper boats on the lake, thinking they would grow up one day and I would meet them in the ocean. My birds did not take flight. Long ago I had clipped their wings and saved them in my childhood album. It was the afternoon of the 18th of November in the state of Louisiana in the U.S., when I received news of the death of Munira Chowdhury. I was astounded. The news pierced my heart. Unbelievable. It must be a bad dream, I thought, or I must have heard wrong. I rang up a few acquaintances and went through Munira Chowdhury's Facebook wall, reading through the posts and comments of all our friends, but I could not get any satisfactory details. I just sat brooding all afternoon into the evening. Later, some friends shared a post on Facebook of a newspaper link from Dhaka with the heading, Poet Munira Chowdhury passed away in a devastating road accident. This irked me. I immediately updated my Facebook status, expressing my feelings in my own way. I still remember staying up all night. I couldn't sleep. It was only after a few days that I relented and cried like a child. Nobody knew much about the details, or did not share if they did. All I could do was scroll down Munira Chowdhury's Facebook wall through the night, reading her posted poems again and again, and staring at her exquisitely beautiful photos and deep dark eyes. I question, why did you do this, Munira Appa? In one of the poems from the collection that she had sent me, she had written, in one of the kitchens in this world, I forget to chop the vegetables. I don't forget to hack myself to pieces though. O bird, my supreme soul. I know it's too late now, there is not much for me or anyone else to do. Munira Chowdhury is gone, stepping through the mist to the end. Everything has come to a stop. Yet I long to see the path she tread as she left. How many waves beat upon the sea, the beach of the foggy Whitmore Bay of Cardiff? Was the sky blue or cloudy? The air must still feel the poet's touch, her fragrance, her footsteps must still mark the sand. Or was there, perhaps, a firefly keeping her company with all its light? When the shadows drown, the home within the house and the eye within the eyes fall asleep, the remaining light perhaps lives on in the light of the firefly. As the night deepened in Louisiana, my mind grew sadder. I looked repeatedly through the many messenger conversations we had. Wanting to send her a copy of Akashleena Diaspora, I had once requested her for her mailing address. It's a good thing she sent it to me, or else I would only have seen the news of Greater Wales. It would have been impossible for me to find the sites of the local newspapers of Cardiff. I started searching the internet morosely with her address along with her zip code, the road and the town. The night grew longer, but Munira Chowdhury nested deep in my mind. I ask, Munira Appa, did the Lord fix you with wings of the mist? There are no answers to this question. It hurts. Then why do you want me to wake up? Why wake up the fountain of sleeping bees? Will this mummy be a human once more in Mathura or Vrindavan? I start reading the online versions of the local newspapers of Cardiff. It was November, winter in Cardiff. As I read about car accidents, I noticed that the police had shut down a few of the streets due to heavy fog. I am astounded, my heart trembles. Those who have read even a few of her poems know what a favorite word the fog was of Munira Chowdhury. How close it was. She thought of herself as a bird of the fog, a wingless bird whose wings had been clipped in childhood. Baba, please take your glasses off. A few birds of the fog are stuck in them. Let them go, they wingless, just like me. Not all boats can cross the waters for the waves. Baba, am I crossing you over? The clock tells me that at this moment, a new foggy morning has dawned in faraway Cardiff. The entire newspaper lay open before me on my computer screen, but in spite of searching thoroughly, I could not find any news of Munira Chowdhury. The exceptionally dense fog had caused the closure of a couple of roads temporarily, and there was news of a few road accidents, but no one had died, just a few injured. People were growing confused with the false news circulating from Dhaka that had gone viral on Facebook. As it is, I was upset, and being bombarded by fake news and speculations on top of that only depressed me further. According to the papers, the whole of Cardiff had engulfed in a thick fog on the night of the 17th. The weather was much worse compared to other days. Generally during this period, the average temperature in Cardiff is 12.8 degrees Celsius, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, but that night the temperature had gone down to 7 degrees Celsius, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. On that foggy, fateful night, poet Munira Chowdhury had gone out in her car alone, with her wings clipped and hurt to the core. Did anyone ever beckon to this distraught bird of the fog to go to the banks of Maikananda? Did anyone assure her that wings of fog would be given to the imprisoned birds? Time passes, but I keep on looking unremittingly, with more concentration. I sat stunned. After going through the news updates for a while, I noticed in the local newspapers of Cardiff had a tiny news item in a corner with the insignia of the South Wales Police Department. There was a link too. The link led to a picture of two police cars on the Cardiff beach. Pic 1, a photo from the morning of 18th of November 2018, when on receiving an anonymous phone call, police from South Wales arrived at the beach of Whitmore Bay in Berry Island. This is where they retrieved the lifeless body of poet Munira Chowdhury. Pic 1. Besides the two police cars, there was also a helicopter. Pic 2. A careful look will show that even at 9 in the morning, the entire area was covered in fog, both over the water as well as in the sky. I too go cold and sit stiffly. Pic 2. There are no colors anywhere. Our Mahidi gardenias submerged in a dark fog. Heard that if you rub the Mahidi leaves on a rock, color oozes out. Today I turned my heart into a rock. The third picture, Pic 3, was an unexpected find. I don't think anyone else has this picture except me. No one is supposed to have. Not unless anyone was searching the net all day and night like me. I'm saying this because the first and second pictures can be retrieved from the Cardiff local newspapers and South Wales Police Department, as they published them in their online version. Only one person of those writers, poets and friends I know who reside in the United Kingdom had posted Pic -1 of the police car in Facebook. I dove so much into the search engine that towards the end of the search results, I found a small post with a Twitter link. On visiting the page, I found the picture below, Pic 3. An unknown gentleman resident of Cardiff, likely a responsible and conscientious citizen, had taken the photo from a distance. He must have stopped while going up or down the road and taken the photo, having just got information that around 9:25 in the morning, the body of a dead woman had been found on the coast. The body was lying half in the water and half on the sand. The initial information given by the police was that they had not found any sign of injury or foul play on the dead body. This was what the gentleman's post on Twitter said. His posted photo was astounding. Pic 3. I say it is astounding because that car parked at the edge of the water on the sand, in all probability was that of poet Munira Chowdhury. The day before, she had driven this silver-white car. She did not park it in the parking lot, but drove it straight down the coast close to the sea. The parking lot also can be seen where the police have parked their cars. Another thing is also very evident, and that is this picture is of that moment when close friends and relatives were called by the police to identify her body. As I don't know any of her relatives, I cannot say who all are there in this photograph with the police. At this end, I fix my eyes on the waters of Whitmore Bay of Berry Island, stare at the car, my eyes start to water. Gradually everything gets blurred. The car, the waters of the bay, the sky above. Everything. Maybe poet Munira Chowdhury's lifeless body washed in the waters of the bay was somewhere nearby, maybe just behind the silver car, that is why it cannot be seen in the photo. Her last companion, this silver car, got the very last warmth of the living Munira Chowdhury. This car was witness to it all. In my search for the eternal Kajla ditty of poetry, I had found the poet, Munira Chowdhury, a little too late. By that time, she was beyond questions from me or anyone else. Besides, she had already scripted her answers. I swim alone. In the ocean that is 900 years old. My eyes begin to blur. Innumerable boughs of blood take birth in both my eyes. O Lord! By the banks of Maikananda. On a foggy morning. Will you clip the boughs of the Raktadamer? This sudden demise of Munira Chowdhury has left me feeling somewhat guilty, because towards the end, when she posted this status on her Facebook wall, I'm overwhelmed, should I live or die, which summons me, though unfortunate, yet it is very true that none of us got in touch with her or spoke to her. We thought maybe they were lines from some new poem that she must have been writing. Alas! I will never get over this pain in my entire life. Are the living dead, or are the dead living? I really cannot tell. So dark. So much of smoke everywhere. So mistakenly I repeatedly fall asleep on my father's grave. Now when I go through the poems and writings that she left behind, I understand this parched poet had built an astonishing world of solitude, isolation, separation and self-enchantment within herself. Surrounding the death of a million silvery fish, by the light of the flambeau. I have seen the festivities in the fisherman's village. For the first time in my life. And so, in the festivities of humans, I always transform into a fish that has no hands or legs. Through her many poems, I see this poet Munira Chowdhury comprehend the sadness and separation in silence, but she was never able to welcome the tumultuous joy of union. But the subject of God or her parents, her grandmother and even the Mayak, which she thought of as the ocean that came up in her poetry, all their conversations, joy and laughter, their exchange of sighs, their tears, all were part of her heart. The Maikananda River was as true as the blood and soul of the human body, the definite destination of the river, the extreme stability and submission into the Mayak Ocean, blossomed in an uninhibited simple self-revelation. This Maikananda River prefers to accept the pain instead of the grapes or pleasure. And perhaps that is the beauty of this river. When one wants to find a place to apply one's emotions, feelings or realizations to one special situation, there is a whole world that prevents it. But one whose objective is not materialism, but truth and immortality, will never be distracted, will never forget the goal. One must step out in search of the truth and immortality, knowing full well that there were many obstacles on the way, relatives and friends who object and criticize, a society that wounds. But there is no other way. A poet, especially, who aspires for that immortality has to accept all of this. I, at least, understand that unless one can depend wholeheartedly on something big and profound, realizing clearly that it is the ultimate truth, the poet could not have possibly taken the difficult decision that she did. Not all of us can depend on such realizations, our hearts cannot stay stable once that point is reached. Again, I go under the water. Into much deeper water. Can't hold my breath for long. I float up, bringing up with me a bunch of shells. I toss each to the ground and open them. Perhaps one has within it the pearl of my dream. I break my nails opening them. And from my finger flows the melted shidor. It is true that Munira Chowdhury did not tread the beaten path of society. She has never tried to submit her tearing heart to tread the stipulated path of the society like the multitudes, and somehow deceitfully stop or pretend to stop her tears. She never insulted or disrespected her own beliefs, her realizations or her experiences for fear of what people might say. It is needless to say that Munira Chowdhury was never among those who remained within the confines of traditional rules and rituals. Whatever she desired were not in the form of limited matter, rather to attain the nectar. This poet overcame all the odds and all her fears. That she never walked the much-treaded path is not surprising. Rather, what was surprisingly brave was that she never compelled her poetic heart to remain tied to the same old path. When we see the fulfillment of her senses that has emerged from the assimilation of her mind and heart with her knowledge and personal beliefs, we understand therein lies her startling specialty. This is not an easy task, not only a matter of astonishment, but most importantly, this itself was the beauty of Munira Chowdhury. Personally, I see the beauty of her soul in this. It was just here that Munira Chowdhury was so exclusive, and therefore, so different from others. If one looks deeply into the unbridled desire, overwhelming joy and yearning that sent waves through her poetic heart, one would see the intense desire of self-realization in her immortality. And that is why, by overcoming the frayed rituals and shackles of society, with an undoubting mind and stride, realizing a massive truth, poet Munira Chowdhury displayed an amazing awakening, her self-discovery, a knowledge of her own geometry, at least that is my own perception. This poet perhaps deciphered, came to know her own geometry. Lovingly, I quote a few lines from Rabindranath Tagore's Urvashi in her honor. Like the rise of the dawn unveiled, you are unhesitating. Not only was Munira Chowdhury a unique personality with her humility, her behavior, her intense and deep love for poetry, she was a strongly politically conscious person also. She wrote about the disturbing political ambience in our homeland that perturbed her no end. There isn't a flag large enough to cover the shame of the murdered innocents. For the last few weeks, a slain sun rises in Bangladesh, blood dripping, drenching the 56,000 square miles. Poet Munira Chowdhury's belief, pledge and love were for art, for life, and also for a human Mayak ocean. A poet who believes in life tries to analyze the ultimate truth in her creativity. At one point her discovery becomes prevailing and abstract, and then she tries to decipher the profound truth of the eternal relationship. There rises a truth from her art, as a result of that meritorious feeling of love, and that truth is exposed in the various unsavory appreciations of phases of her poetry. I met you 9 years ago, and I built a 9-door river in those years. Will you make some time to come to shut those windows of water? We have to understand that the tough decisions of the person Munira were behind her accomplishments by dint of austere endeavor. Her only duty was to bear it all, not bring it into the open. So to us, the person Munira Chowdhury is not the ultimate acquaintance. The ultimate acquaintance of poet Munira Chowdhury is there where she comes forth to us through her writings, where she blossoms in her own form. And primarily that coming forth is completely revealed in her poems. We find in her poems enormous variety and incredible charm. She has transformed life's pain and smacks into poems. So we should justifiably honor and respect the poet Munira, segregating her from the person Munira. We have to study her and conserve her works. At the beginning of this writing, I have listed the published and edited works of books, papers and collections of Munira Chowdhury. Arrangement has to be made to have these evaluated, reprinted and conserved in a proper way. The next generation should read her works, and come to know this poet who met an untimely death. Let them know how a poet's last journey could turn out to be a never-ending fascinating poem. If the broken spring joins together, a Munira fire may come to the making. The way poet Munira Chowdhury was scathed on the banks of the poem's sorrowful Mayakananda River, her extreme worry of the sorrow raised a breath, and together with this she spread out for us days of the color of Mehendi leaves. The pervasion of her sight lives like the bird of fog on the banks of the Mayakananda River, and like the rain and waves of the eternal Mayak ocean in our sleep. When she says, "On a dark night I come to know that in this world there's nothing particularly painful pain. It is the secret name of the dead Munira Chowdhury." Then it feels that not only in the Berry Island of Cardiff Town, but over the whole world has alighted a swell of fog, where the bird of fog with clipped wings, a poet, piercing the chill of the ice, conquering all fear, walks in bold footsteps towards the ocean, the waves of the ocean, the depths of the ocean. And that not to eliminate herself but to emerge as the eternal bird in her next birth, by submitting herself to the ocean, the massive, the humongous. I pick the fog every morning of my next life. I saved the seeds of the fog in my dead grandmother's bundle. One day I will grow crops for miles in the center of my eyes. Letting go of the breath in the sky. Further away I let the shadows and the skeleton of the breeze fly. One day they will turn into birds by the banks of the Maikananda. Translated from Bengali by Purnasri Nag. Cardiff Beach of Whitmore Bay, Berry Island, where the poet committed suicide.